We're going to talk about what it really takes to be a great manager today in this incredibly dynamic workplace we're all in. We'll get into the challenges, the massive risks of getting it wrong, and, most importantly, the clear path to building a team that doesn't just get by, but absolutely thrives.
You know, the one word that really defines the modern work environment is probably uncertainty. And I mean, just look at this number. We're talking about nearly 1.1 million job cuts announced by American employers through October of last year. That's a huge figure, and it really highlights the volatility that so many of us are feeling.
And get this wasn't just a little jump. That number is a staggering 65% increase over the year before. So, this isn't just business as usual. We're seeing a pretty fundamental shift happening in the labor market right now.
And it's not random either. You've got major companies making some really big strategic moves. There's this huge push towards AI and making operations more agile. And that's kind of chipping away at the long-term job security that, honestly, a lot of us used to take for granted.
So that brings us to the big question for any leader out there. How in the world do you navigate this new minefield? When the ground is constantly shifting under your feet, the pressure on managers to really get it right, well, it's never been higher.
And in this kind of environment, the cost of bad management just skyrockets. We're not just talking about lower morale anymore. No, this can have serious legal and financial consequences that can honestly cripple a whole organization.
I mean, just take a look at these. These are real lawsuits from 2024. They really show that regulators are cracking down on everything, from physical accessibility at a place like LA Fitness, all the way to potentially biased AI hiring tools at big tech companies. The whole legal landscape is evolving so fast, and managers, well, you're right there on the front lines.
And the financial stakes? They are unbelievably high. In fiscal year 2023, the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, that's the EEOC, recovered almost $700 million for victims of unlawful discrimination. That is a number that should make every single manager sit up and pay attention. And these legal cases, they often come from common, totally avoidable mistakes. Things like blaming one person for a system that's broken, or stereotyping employees. This stuff goes way beyond just being a bad boss. It completely destroys trust and creates a toxic place where nobody can possibly do their best work.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that being successful today requires a fundamental shift in how we think. We have to move away from that old school, rigid, top-down control and move toward a much more adaptive, human-centered approach that actually values relationships and autonomy.
Okay, so what does that path forward actually look like? How do we build that stronger, more unified team? This is where we stop talking theory and start putting things into practice. The absolute foundation of any modern, effective team is this idea called psychological safety. It's really just the belief that you won't get punished or humiliated for speaking up, whether it's with ideas, questions, or even mistakes. And in this high-pressure, uncertain world we just talked about, creating this feeling of safety is both way harder and way more important than it's ever been. And the great thing is, you can actively build this. But it has to start with you, the leader. You've got to acknowledge your own mistakes. Make feedback a normal, healthy part of the conversation, not some scary annual event. And when things go wrong, frame them as a lesson for the whole team, not a reason to point fingers.
Now, once you have that safe foundation in place, effective communication becomes the tool that unlocks your team's real potential. It turns all that diversity on your team into a genuine superpower.
And being an effective communicator means you have to recognize just how different your team's preferences are. As you can see here, it's kind of all over the map. Some people love asynchronous text, others really need that face-to-face dialogue. So trying to use a one-size-fits-all approach, it is absolutely guaranteed to fail. So the key is to adapt your method to the person and the situation. But, and this is so important, you have to stay genuine. Authenticity is really the bedrock of trust. If your team thinks you're being fake or putting on an act, any attempt to adapt is just going to backfire. Okay, so how do we pull all of this together into a real, practical leadership strategy? Let's build your action plan right now. Think of these 5 commitments as your blueprint for day-to-day leadership. It's about encouraging constant learning so your team can adapt. It's about fostering real inclusion, not just checking a box. It means you're actively supporting mental health and promoting flexibility. And, maybe most importantly, you lead by example in everything you do.
At the end of the day, modern management isn't about having all the answers. It's relational, it's structured, and it has to be intentional. So that leaves us with one final thought to take away.
As a leader, what is the one concrete change you will make this week to start building a more resilient, psychologically safe team?